Welcome back to Reformed Thinking. It is good to be back on the mic.
It is.
If you are a regular listener, you know the drill by now. We are two friends, fellow believers, and we generally try to view the world, Scripture, and theology through that distinct lens of the Protestant Reformation.
That's right. We hold to the Westminster Confession. We love the density of covenant theology, and we operate on the premise that these old truths have a lot to say to our modern lives.
Absolutely. And today we're doing a deep dive into a topic that honestly I think a lot of us just glaze over. We're looking at the biblical qualifications for the office of elder.
Hmm.
Now, usually when a church is looking at a guy for leadership, we get the magnifying glass out for his theology, right? Does he know his doctrine? Is he solid on the Trinity? Does he understand justification by faith alone?
Which is essential. I mean, if he gets that wrong, nothing else matters.
Vital. And then we look at his moral purity. Is he sober? Is he faithful to his wife? Is he honest in his business dealings? All critical. But there's one qualification in the list that the Apostle Paul gives in both 1 Timothy and Titus that I feel like often gets treated like a bonus round. It's the requirement that an overseer must be hospitable.
It is the one box where, if a candidate isn't great at it, people tend to shrug. You hear search committees say things like, well, he's not very social and he keeps to himself, but he's a great teacher.
Right. We treat it like a personality trait. Like, oh, Bill's an extrovert, so he's got the hospitality thing covered. Steve's an introvert, so we'll give him a pass on that one.
Right. As if it's an optional extra.
But our sources for this deep dive are arguing something pretty radical. They're saying that hospitality isn't just about being nice or having people over for a game night. It's a theological necessity. In fact, Paul uses the word di. It is necessary for an overseer.
And that is the hook right there. We're accustomed to thinking of hospitality as Southern charm or having a really nice living room with the pillows fluffed just right. But the argument here is that a lack of hospitality isn't just a lack of social skills. It represents a lack of spiritual fruit. It might even be a disqualification for ministry.
That is a heavy statement. You're saying a guy could be a theological genius,
Right.
but if his drawer is closed, he's unfit.
That's what the text implies. And the objective of this deep dive is to see why Paul puts it there. Why is hospitable sitting right next to sober-minded and able to teach? We're going to see that this isn't about dinner parties. It's rooted in the covenant of grace. It reflects the gospel itself. And this part blew my mind. It's actually described in our sources as a weapon of spiritual warfare.
Oh, weapon of warfare. Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we're going to say this is a requirement, we better know what the word actually means.
Right.
We aren't talking about entertaining, are we?
No, not at all. We have to start with the Greek. The word used in 1 Timothy 3.2 is philoxenos.
Philoxenos. Okay, let's parse that.
If you break that down, philos means love or affection like, Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love.
Oh.
And xenos means stranger, foreigner, or alien. So the literal translation is lover of strangers.
That is already so different from how we use the word today. When I say I'm being hospitable, I usually mean I'm having my friends over to watch the game.
Drastically different. And think about the opposite word, which we all know, xenophobia. That is the fear of strangers. Biblical hospitality is the exact opposite moral posture. It's the love of the stranger.
The love of the stranger.
And the sources make a really important distinction here. Paul does not use the word philophron, which would mean lover of friends.
Ooh, that's a conviction right there. Because I think most of us, when we think we're being hospitable, we're really just hanging out with our buddies. We're dealing with people who are already in our circle.
Spot on. And the pagans did that. The ancient world understood reciprocal social exchange very well. You invite me to your banquet, I invite you to mine. Our social capital remains balanced. Everyone's happy.
A kind of social transaction.
Yes. But philoxenia biblical hospitality disrupts that entire economic exchange. It's about loving the outsider, the awkward person, the new convert who doesn't know the lingo yet, the person who cannot repay you.
So it's not about having your best friends over for steaks. It's about the person who doesn't fit in.
It's about the person who is, by definition, a xenos, a stranger. And to understand why this was so critical, we have to look at the historical context. The sources paint a pretty gritty picture of the first century world.
I can imagine.
Traveling back then wasn't like hopping on a flight and staying at a nice hotel.
No, you didn't have a safety rating to check on an app.
No. There were commercial inns called kapane, and they were notorious. They were dangerous places. Often they functioned as brothels. They were centers for robbery. If you were a Christian traveling to spread the gospel or just traveling for work, staying in an inn was physically and spiritually perilous.
So you risked your life and your property.
You did, and this meant the spread of the gospel literally depended on open doors.
It was a strategic necessity then.
Absolutely. The early church survived because private homes acted as safe harbors. They were sanctuaries. If Christians didn't open their homes to itinerant preachers and fellow believers, the mission just stops. It grinds to a halt.
So when Paul tells Timothy that an elder must be hospitable, he isn't saying make sure he's a good host. He's saying make sure he is ready to protect and sustain the network of the kingdom.
Yes. It's about building and maintaining the very fabric of the church.
That puts a completely different weight on it. It's infrastructure for the Great Commission.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to something you touched on, because I think this is where we get tripped up in the modern West. We confuse hospitality with entertainment.
This is a crucial distinction. Our source material draws a sharp line here. Entertainment is fundamentally about the host. It's about my home, my cooking skills, my curated aesthetic.
The Pinterest perfect house. The idea that everything has to be spotless before anyone crosses the threshold. The dog has to be hidden, the kids have to be on their best behavior.
Right. It's performance-driven. It's rooted in the pride of life or the fear of man. I want you to come over so you can be impressed by me. That's entertainment.
It's self-focused.
Completely. Hospitality is the opposite. It focuses entirely on the guest. It asks, what do you need? How can I refresh you? How can I help you? It's other focus.
So one is standing on a stage, and the other is functioning as a servant.
Precisely. The sources call out what they term the Martha syndrome. Remember Martha, bustling around, anxious about many things?
Yeah, while Mary sits at Jesus' feet.
Right. We get so obsessed with a spotless home or a gourmet meal that we actually become inhospitable. We're anxious, we're distracted, and the guest feels like an audience member rather than a person being cared for.
They feel like they're an imposition.
Yes, and the text argues that a simple meal, soup, and bread, where there is genuine prayer and focus on the guest, is infinitely superior to a lavish banquet full of anxiety.
That is freeing, isn't it? It really takes the pressure off. It isn't about the food, it's about the heart.
It's vanity versus ministry. That is the choice. If you're worried about the dust on the baseboards more than the soul of the person sitting on your couch, you're entertaining, not showing hospitality.
Okay, so we've defined the term. It's loving the stranger, not just the friend. It's attending to needs, not performance. But being Reformed, guys, we have to get to the theology. Why is this such a big deal to God? Why isn't it just a nice thing to do?
This is where we have to put our covenant theology hats on. The argument here is that hospitality isn't just a rule, it's woven into the fabric of reality starting right at creation.
How so? Walk us through that.
Well, think about it. God is the first host. When he created the world, he prepared it like a temple, he made the garden, he filled it with good things, and then, only then, he created Adam and welcomed him into a world he didn't build. Eden was the archetypal guest house. Adam was a guest of God.
I love that image. We were welcomed in. We didn't build the house. We just moved in. We were tenants, not owners.
But then comes the fall. And how do the sources describe the fall? As an act of cosmic inhospitality. Man rejected the rule of the host. We wanted to own the house. We wanted to be the landlord.
Or overstepped our role as guests.
Exactly. And the result was eviction, exile.
We were kicked out of the garden.
And that changed our ontological status. Ephesians 2:1 says we became strangers and aliens. We became spiritual refugees. We were wandering east of Eden, cut off from the household of God. So the condition of fallen humanity is homelessness.
Which sets the stage for redemption. If the fall is exile, redemption must be.
Hospitality. The Westminster Confession uses this beautiful phrase, voluntary condescension. The distance between us and God is so great that we could never know him unless he voluntarily came down and opened the door. The gospel is God reopening the door that sin shut.
And you see this in the Old Testament law, right? I'm thinking of Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy 10:19. God commands Israel to love the sojourner. And why? He doesn't say because it's polite. He says, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. Their ethics had to mirror their redemptive memory. God is saying, I took you in when you were outsiders, now you do the same. Your whole identity is wrapped up in being a people who were welcomed when you were homeless.
That is powerful. It isn't just be nice, it is remember who you are. You were the stranger, you were the refugee.
And then, of course, this culminates in Christ. And the Christology here is just fascinating. The sources point out that Jesus plays both roles. He is the stranger and he is the host.
Right. He had nowhere to lay his head.
Born in a borrowed stable, died outside the camp. He identifies with the outsider. He knows what it is to be rejected, to be a xenos.
But at the same time, he is the ultimate host.
The ultimate host. And what does he say in John 14? I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many rooms. And he hosts the new covenant meal communion. He invites us to his table.
The source material used a phrase that really stuck with me. It talked about the theology of the open vein.
Yes. That's a weighty image, isn't it? It's the idea that God doesn't just open a door. He opens himself. He adopts enemies and seats them at his table. He pays the cost of our welcome with his own life.
With his own blood.
With his own blood. So when we talk about an elder, a leader in Christ's church, having a closed home,
It's a contradiction of the gospel. It's completely inconsistent.
it is a theological heresy. That's what the sources argue. To preach an open gospel that God welcomes sinners while keeping a closed home is a lie. You are misrepresenting the covenant of grace. Your life is preaching a different sermon than your mouth.
Wow, that really raises the stakes. It moves this from, it would be nice if the pastor had us over, to, does this man understand the gospel he's preaching?
Precisely. And that leads us directly into the ecclesiology. Why is this specifically a requirement for elders? I mean, all Christians should be hospitable, right?
Sure, Romans 12 says, seek to show hospitality. That's for everyone.
But for elders, it's a qualification for office. It's non-negotiable. And the reason goes back to what the church actually is. 1 Timothy 3.15 calls the church the household of God. Oikos.
It's not a business. It's not an event center or a lecture hall. It is a family.
And you cannot shepherd a family from a distance. You cannot father a family through bureaucracy or a well-written email newsletter.
No.
The argument is that hospitality is the infrastructure for oversight. It provides what the military might call situational awareness.
Situational awareness. I like that. Unpack that for the church context.
If an elder only sees you on Sunday morning in your Sunday best, shaking hands in the foyer, he doesn't know you. He sees the polished version. He sees the representative.
The curated self.
Yes, but when you're in his home, or he is in yours, when you're breaking bread, the guards come down. He sees the true state of the flock. He sees the tension in a marriage that's hidden behind smiles on Sunday. He sees the loneliness in a single person. He sees the discouragement in someone's eyes that you just can't see from a pulpit.
He cannot shepherd what he doesn't see.
Precisely. If he isn't hospitable, he is flying blind. He's managing a program, not shepherding souls. And that's why Paul places hospitable right next to able to teach. There's a logic there.
What's the connection?
The logic is this. If a man cannot open his home to minister to physical needs, hunger, thirst, loneliness, he lacks the credibility to open the scriptures to minister to spiritual needs. His words will sound hollow.
It's a character test.
Yeah.
It demonstrates the heart behind the doctrine.
It's a diagnostic tool. Hospitality tests whether a man is ruled by self-protection and comfort or by love. It proves whether his authority is cruciform shaped by the cross. Is his leadership exercised through service, or is it just about domination and control and maintaining his own little kingdom?
You know, I can hear the objection coming. I've heard it before. Well, isn't this what the deacons are for? Or the welcome committee? Can't the elders focus on the word and prayer and delegate the hospitality?
The sources address that head on, and the answer is a resounding no.
A hard no.
A hard no. You can delegate tasks, you can delegate meal trains, but you cannot delegate the relational sinews of the body. Oversight is personal. An elder who outsources hospitality is an elder who is trying to shepherd by proxy. It doesn't work.
It's like a father trying to outsource tucking his kids into bed.
That's a great analogy. Programs can assist, but they cannot replace the shepherd's presence. The sheep need to know the shepherd's smell, his voice, his home.
That is a strong rebuke to the corporate CEO model of church leadership we see so often.
It really is. It calls us back to a family model, an ancient biblical model.
Okay, I want to pivot a bit here. We've talked about what hospitality is and why it matters. But our sources also go into what they call polemics and counterfeits. They frame the elder's table as a weapon of spiritual warfare. That sounds intense. Who are we fighting against with a dinner table?
We're fighting against the idols of our age, individualism and privacy. Think about the loneliness statistics you see everywhere. We are the most connected society in history, technologically, yet over half of adults report suffering from severe social isolation.
We are lonely. We're swimming in a sea of people but feel completely alone.
We are isolated. And the church is God's ordained remedy for that. So when an elder opens his home, he is physically fighting against the atomization of society. He's creating a pocket of belonging in a world of
A
alienation.
countercultural community.
Exactly. But there are counterfeits we have to watch out for. There are ways to do hospitality that actually undermine the truth.
Right. And one of the big ones mentioned is what we might call the error of liberalism.
Yes. This is where hospitality gets confused with affirmation.
Mm.
In our culture, welcoming someone often means you have to affirm everything about them, their lifestyle, their sin, their worldview. If you don't affirm it, you aren't being inclusive.
Which is a huge pressure point right now.
Huge. But the Bible draws a line there.
A very sharp line.
A very sharp line. 2 John 1.10, Azel 11. John the Apostle of Love, mind you, says, do not receive false teachers. Do not give them a platform. Do not even greet them. So true theological hospitality is not inclusivity that validates heresy.
How do you draw that distinction then?
We feed the unbeliever. That's common grace. We love the sinner. But we do not practice ecclesiastical hospitality that gives a platform to error. There's a difference between inviting a skeptical neighbor for dinner and inviting a heretical teacher to lead your Bible study.
So true hospitality loves the sinner too much to leave them in their sin. It doesn't rewrite God's truth just to make the guest feel comfortable in their rebellion.
Exactly. It's a welcome into reality, not a welcome into a fantasy where God doesn't care about sin. The most loving thing you can do is offer both a meal and the truth.
Then there's the other side of the coin. The sources called it sentimental hospitality.
This is the nice hospitality. It's warm, there are cookies, everyone is smiling, but there is no truth. It's welcoming without holiness.
It's all welcome, no challenge.
Right. It's boundaryless. The sources warn that elders must still manage their households well. Being hospitable doesn't mean you expose your family to danger or that you never say no. It doesn't mean you let your house become chaotic. Wisdom is part of love. A good shepherd protects his own flock, including the flock in his home.
That's a good balance. And then there is selective hospitality. We touched on this, but it's worth hammering home.
This is the most common temptation, I think. Welcoming only the people who improve your status, the cool people, the wealthy people, the easy guests who know how to behave and won't make a mess.
The people who aren't going to spill juice on the carpet or say something awkward at the table.
Right. But the sources argue that this trains the church in favoritism, which the book of James calls a sin. The elder must model welcome to the inconvenient member, the person who talks a little too much, the person who is socially awkward, the person who has nothing to offer in return. That is where the rubber meets the road.
This is really convicting stuff. It makes you look at your own calendar and your own dining room table differently. So let's get practical, because I know there are guys listening, maybe elders, maybe aspiring elders, or just heads of households thinking, okay, I hear you, but I am swamped. I am busy.
The too busy objection, the sources are pretty ruthless with this one.
Lay it on us.
They frame it using the third use of the law. This is the Reformed idea that the law guides our gratitude. We don't do this to earn salvation. We do it because we are saved.
It's our thankful response to grace.
Right. But regarding busyness, the argument is, if an elder is too busy to obey God's command to be hospitable, he is too busy, period.
That's it. No nuance.
That's it. It's idolatry of the schedule. If you
Yeah.
have no margin for people, you are too busy to be a shepherd. The open door requires an open slot in the diary. You have to plan for it. You have to build margin into your life for the unexpected knock on the door.
And there's a very practical and frankly protective point made about the wife in all of this. This is a big one.
Yes, this is vital because often when a man hears, you need to be hospitable, he goes home and tells his wife, hey, we need to have people over, and he dumps the entire workload on her.
Make it happen, honey.
Yep.
It's my biblical qualification.
Yeah,
As if she's just part of his ministry resume.
right. And the sources say, absolutely not. This is a qualification for the man. He must not treat his wife as a catering servant. He needs to lead by serving. That might mean he is the one chopping vegetables or cleaning the bathroom or, and this is key, keeping things simple enough that it isn't a burden.
That brings us back to the soup and bread idea. It doesn't have to be a 4-course meal.
It shouldn't be. Small and frequent.
Yeah.
That is the mantra. Move away from big events that happen once a quarter and exhaust everyone. Move toward ordinary rhythms.
Like what?
A spare chair at dinner, meeting for coffee, going for a walk, or just integrating people into the life you are already living. It needs to be sustainable. If it exhausts your family, you aren't doing it right. It should be a joy, not a drudgery.
I love that. It makes it accessible. It isn't about becoming a party planner. It's about integrating people into your actual life. And the evangelistic potential there is huge.
It's the strategic high ground. The home is the front door for skeptics. A lot of people today are terrified of walking into a church building. It feels foreign. It feels judgmental.
They don't know the rules. They don't know when to stand or sit.
Exactly. But being invited to dinner, that's human. That's disarming. The dinner table is where the defenses come down, and the reality of Christian love can actually be felt, not just talked about.
It's hard to argue with someone who's feeding you.
It is. It changes the dynamic entirely. You're no longer a project. You're a guest.
Well, as we wrap this up, I want to look at the big picture. We've gone from the Greek definition to the covenant to the church structure. But where does this all head? What is the ultimate end of hospitality?
It heads to the end times. It's eschatological. Every time we practice hospitality, every shared meal, every open door is an antepast.
An antipath.
Foretaste. A small sample. It is a foretaste of the marriage supper of the Lamb.
The end of the story.
The end of the story. The Bible ends with a meal. It ends with a wedding feast. And Christ is the host. When an elder opens his table, he is pointing his flock toward that horizon. He's saying, this is good, but something better is coming. One day, we will sit at a table where the feast never ends, and Christ will wait on us.
That puts the frozen pizza we serve the college students into a whole new perspective.
It really does. It sanctifies the ordinary. It makes the mundane meaningful.
So here's the challenge for us, and for you listening. To be an elder, and really to be a faithful Christian, is to be a lover of strangers. It's not optional. It is the shape of the gospel.
And here's a thought to leave you with. Look at your dining table. Is it merely furniture for consumption? Is it just a place where you refuel your body?
Or is it an altar for mission?
That's a question.
That is a question worth sitting with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Reformed thinking. We hope this challenges you to open your door a little wider this week.
Grace and peace to you.
See you next time.